Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a genuinely fascinating journey to untangle one of the absolute greatest paradoxes of human existence: how to actually find peace in an increasingly chaotic world. You know, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the daily grind, constantly chasing security and pleasure but never feeling quite satisfied, you are in the exact right place. We're going to dive into a highly practical guide that seamlessly weaves together 5,000-year-old philosophy from chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita with the absolute cutting-edge frontiers of modern neuroscience and quantum physics. We are going to master your mind, your life, and what scientists are now calling your cognitive orchestra. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this striking, mystical imagery. It's the Ashwatha tree, or the banyan tree. But here's the catch. It's completely upside down. Its roots are reaching up into the sky, and its branches are growing downward into the earth. This idea originally appears in the Katha Upanishad and is beautifully expanded upon in the Bhagavad Gita. Honestly, as a way to explain human reality, there is perhaps no metaphor more vivid or accurate for how we experience the world today. So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll decode the upside-down tree. Then we'll introduce your cognitive operators, see exactly where ancient wisdom meets modern quantum physics, hand you the axe of detachment, and finally, end with some very actionable steps for peaceful living. We're going to untangle this ancient metaphor using some very concrete scientific frameworks, so stick with me. Section 1. The upside-down tree, the roots of our struggle. The ancient texts use this upside-down tree to describe a concept called samsara, which is essentially the messy, intertwined cycle of human existence. Think about your actual daily life for a second. The constant emails, the societal pressures, that burning desire to buy a nicer car, or just the baseline anxiety about protecting your savings. That entire web of seeking external security and external pleasure, that is samsara. It's literally the evolutionary baggage we all carry, and man, it is exhausting. Let's break this metaphor down a bit more. The main roots are at the top, representing the supreme source or pure consciousness. The branches growing downward represent everything manifesting in our material world. But here's the really critical part. As those branches grow down, they sprout these secondary roots called vasanas. These are our ignorances and our deep, deep attachments. They tangle us up. They wrap around the lower branches so densely that the original trunk becomes completely invisible. And you know, this is exactly why life feels so incredibly complicated and messy. We're constantly dragged down by this evolutionary baggage of seeking security and pleasure on the outside. Section 2. Your mind and life operators, the cognitive orchestra. So, modern scientific research, particularly in the fields of psychiatry and clinical neuroscience, proposes something truly fascinating. Between the hard material reality of the world and pure consciousness, there is a whole cognitive reality. Inside this space, there is a cognitive orchestra playing constantly. It's made up of these non-observable operators that literally dictate how you experience every single second of your day. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the contrast here. We have operator I, the mind. It's your event-making entity. Then we have operator 3, life, which is your homeostasis manager. Think of a really common modern struggle. Your mind constantly craves new events, right? It wants to stay up until 2 a.m. doom-scrolling social media for that quick dopamine hit. But your life operator, it desperately wants biological balance, signaling you to go to sleep so you can actually survive tomorrow. When your unguided mind's desires clash with your life's drive for security, they act just like those tangled secondary roots of the Ashwatha tree we talked about, dragging you deeper and deeper into chaos. Which brings us to a vital question. Why? Why do these incredible biological and psychological operators keep us feeling so trapped? Why do we feel this absolutely relentless dependence on the outside world just to feel okay, to feel secure, or to grab a fleeting moment of pleasure? Section 3. Science meets ancient wisdom, validating the texts. Well, it turns out the 5,000-year-old insights of the Bhagavad Gita have stunning parallels in quantum physics. Think about the observer effect. In quantum mechanics, the sheer act of observation collapses multiple potentials into a definite state, meaning consciousness is fundamental. Millennia ago, the Gita described this exact duality as the field, the observable world, and the knower of the field, consciousness itself. Plus, concepts like quantum entanglement and non-locality show us that particles remain connected across vast amounts of space, challenging our whole illusion that we are isolated individuals. This echoes chapter 10 of the Gita, which states that a single source pervades and connects all things. Science is literally validating what the ancients knew. The deep separation our mind obsesses over is physically an illusion. We are fundamentally connected. And it's not just physics, it's psychology too. Modern research confirms that the Gita's core teaching of equanimity, which is remaining balanced through both pleasure and pain, is exactly what we now call cognitive reappraisal and acceptance-based therapy in modern science. The ancients basically handed us a highly advanced evidence-based emotional regulation manual thousands of years before we had a name for it. So, if we have this ancient, scientifically validated manual, how do we actually use it? How do we practically hack our mind and life operators to clear away this tangled mess of secondary roots that are ruining our peace? Section 4, the acts of detachment, severing the ties. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how to do that. It's a roadmap from world dependence to absolute independence. We start with our two core problems, world dependence for security and world dependence for pleasure. The framework shows us the precise tools to use. To overcome our need for external security, we apply karma yoga, which leads to equanimity. To overcome our need for external pleasure, we apply dhyana yoga, which leads to control of the mind and senses. Ultimately, both of these paths converge, leading to true spiritual and emotional independence. Let's break that down just a bit more. When you depend on the world for security, any stock market dip, any bad performance review, it violently tosses you around. The fix here is karma yoga, a secular attitude of service. On the flip side, when you depend on the world for pleasure, you're constantly chasing that next hit, right? The fix for that is the jnana yoga, which is meditation and compassion. That gives you absolute control over your sensory pulse. We literally have to take an axe to our dependence on the world for both security and pleasure. The overarching tool here is the powerful axe of asanga, which translates to detachment. Now wait, this doesn't mean running away to live in a cave. It is a highly practical formula. Perform your daily duties, but drop the desperate worldly desires attached to them. It simply means increasing your contribution to the world while decreasing your consumption. You give more than you take. By doing this, you literally chop away the secondary roots of that upside-down ashwatha tree, and you practically rewire operator I, your mind, to stop obsessing over external events. Section 5, the art of peaceful living, rewiring for equanimity. Let's move to Nantriaksa and see how this builds into the dhyana yoga sequence. This is a step-by-step method to actively hack your homeostasis manager, life. First, abhyasa, you listen and learn the concepts. Second, jhanam, you reflect until you have zero doubts about the knowledge. Third, dhyanam, you actually meditate on this understanding. Fourth, tyaga, you practice detachment, dropping your expectations of people and situations. And finally, step 5 just naturally arises from all of that, shanti, absolute peace. And here is a phenomenal scientific insight to back up step 3. Dhyana yoga isn't just about sitting around quietly, it's a physiological hack. When you practice secular meditation, like mindfulness or compassion meditation, you literally teach your brain to generate its own dopamine. You create intense internal pleasure. Once your brain realizes it can source its own joy from within, your frantic dependence on the outside world for gratification simply breaks. You regain control of your senses. It's incredible. The ultimate expression of this mastery is a concept called a parigraha, or possessional solitude. Again, you don't have to throw your smartphone in the ocean or give away your entire bank balance. A parigraha is the mental renunciation of these things. You recognize that your gadgets, your wealth, your status, and even your job title are temporary. You mentally keep them aside. You realize that you are the observer, that pure consciousness we talked about in quantum physics, an identity completely beyond the temporary body and mind. It's the ultimate way to master your cognitive orchestra amidst all of life's chaos. By truly understanding your cognitive orchestra, by giving more than you take with karma yoga, and by generating your own inner joy through dhyana yoga, you take back the reins. You flip that ashwatha tree right side up. So as you go back into the chaos of the world today, I want to leave you with this one provocative thought. What secondary roots of attachment are dragging you down right now, and which one will you take the axe of detachment to today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and we will see you in the next one.